Who are the greatest Seahawks in franchise history? If you are a Seahawks fan, and if you have been on the Seattle Seahawks webpage, you may have noticed that there is a voting for the greatest Seahawk players in franchise history. Now, the reason why they want us to vote for the greatest Seahawk players is because next season it's going to be 50 years of franchise existence. And so they want us to cast our votes for the greatest Seahawk players. And I've already submitted my votes. Now I can vote as many times as I want, so I can select other players, especially if I'm kind of torn on some of them. So for this video, what I want to do is just give you my starting lineup for both offense and defense. And so let's get into that. And I am on the Seahawks webpage, and you will notice here up on top where you can vote for the top 50 players in franchise history. So I will click on that, and it says here, vote now for your top 50 Seahawk players. And you just look here, and you see some of the notable players throughout the history of the franchise. Now, this is a good picture. You see the players throughout the years, a few of them, but where is Steve Largent? Why isn't he not on that page? That's a problem. I got a problem with that. Sorry, guys. They're great players, but Steve Largent belongs in that picture. So it's interesting here where it says that we celebrate our 50th season. Since 1976, over 1,200 players have put on a Seahawk uniform and left their mark on Seahawks legacy. For our 50th season, we will recognize the competitive greatness that this club is known for and honor the top 50 players in Seahawks history. Vote now for your top 50 Seahawk players. You have until December 22nd to vote as many times as you like for which players you think should make the final list. That's important to remember. December 22nd, that's the deadline to get your votes in. The final top 50 Seahawk players will be selected by the 12s and a jury made up of Seahawk legends, front office staff, and Seattle media members. And so that's kind of what I am planning on doing for this video. Like I said a second ago, I'm just voting. I've already submitted my vote. Now I will submit another ballot here, but for the sake of this video, I'm doing just the starting lineup for offense and defense. So I will click on vote now. So as you see here, you can scroll down, you can go to your quarterbacks, and you can collapse it. You've got your running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, safety, and specialists. And if you notice right here, you've got my top 50 players. And so I will go to the quarterback. And to me, this is a no-brainer. Now, there's been some great quarterbacks like Matt Hasselbeck, Dave Craig, Jim Zorn. But my vote for the starting quarterback is none other than Russell Wilson. You click on his bio, you'll look at that, go back, and all you have to do is just click on the page, and you have your vote. And it says my top 50, 1 out of 50. So, that is my starting quarterback. I'm going to go down to the running back category. And there's some good running backs here. Got Sean Alexander, Chris Carson, Marshawn Lynch, Kurt Warner, Chris Warren, Ricky Waters, John L. Williams. So who do I want? For running back, now, even though he didn't play that many years, I'm going with Marshawn Lynch because of the impact that he had during their Super Bowl runs back in 2013 and 2014. He was a key player. Now, I'm kind of torn because Kurt Warner was great during his time. Chris Warren was another outstanding running back. But my vote is Sean Alexander. And the reason why is simply because he was the MVP during their Super Bowl run back in 2005. And I will go to wide receiver. Now, there's already one person. It's a no-brainer. It's none other than the Seattle GOAT himself, Steve Largent. And that's why I was livid earlier about him not being in that picture of the other players. When you think of the Mount Rushmore of Seahawks players, Steve Largent is number one. It's simple as that. And then there are some other outstanding players. Look at Doug Baldwin. There was Brian Blades, played 11 years. You have Joey Galloway, who was a dynamic speedster. You got your current player, Tyler Lockett. You have another current player, DK Metcalf. I'm kind of torn here. If I'm being honest, I'm real torn. It's either Doug Baldwin or Joey Galloway. And I think because with Steve Largent being a go-to, I want to look for a big play threat. And to me, Joey Galloway fits that role as a big play threat because he was a speedster. Now we go to the tight ends. Now you got John Carson, Will Disley, Christian Fourier, Jimmy Graham, and Mike Tice. Now, these guys were all decent. Jimmy Graham came into Seattle after their failed attempt to repeat for the Super Bowl, but I just can't put him on there. But if you're a lifelong Seahawk fan, how can you not go with Mike Tice? Okay, that's who I'm going with. Mike Tice is my player at tight end. Now I am in the offensive line category, and the no-brainer, Walter Jones. He's another Mount Rushmore player that deserves to be on there when it comes to the Seahawks all-time greats. The other guy who is also a no-brainer is none other than Steve Hutchinson. Him and Walter Jones together were just a great combo at that left side of the offensive line. Now for my other tackles and my other guard for the right side, now he was not a right tackle, he was a left tackle, but I am going with Russell Okung. That guy was a great tackle for the Seahawks. Now it's hard for me to pick another guard here, going through this list here, but I really don't know who I should get. I am going to go with Jermaine Ifedi for the guard on the right hand side of the offensive line. And for their center, I'm going with Max Unger. And the reason why I'm going with Max Unger is because he solidified the offensive line, and when they traded him, their offensive line was non-existent. He solidified that line, and for that reason, that's why I'm picking Max Unger as their center. And now, the defensive line. And there's a no-brainer on this one as well. Defensive tackle, Cortez Kennedy. He is another guy who I believe is on Mount Rushmore of the greatest Seahawks in franchise history. That guy despite being on a bad team, was just a dominating force as a defensive tackle. He was just one of the best out there. The other defensive tackle I'm going with, and this might be a surprise to some of you, but I am going to go with Joe Nash because of his long tenure with the franchise. He and Cortez Kennedy played together, and they were a impactful force on the defensive line, especially stopping the run. Now for defensive ends, I am going with Michael Bennett because of how he dominated during their Super Bowl run. And my other choice is Jacob Green. That guy I remember watching him, and he really wreaked havoc, and he could get after the quarterback. Let's go to my linebackers. Bobby Wagner, middle linebacker. He's one of the all-time leading tacklers in franchise history. Need I say more about Bobby Wagner? His impact throughout that franchise. And then there's another linebacker. That was another dominating force. And I am picking Rufus Porter. He was a great individual. Now, as far as my third linebacker, you can make an argument for Chad Brown. Keith Butler was decent. Michael Jackson was good. Julian Peterson was decent, but he didn't play for that long. Same with Lofa Tatupu and Malcolm Smith. And you can also make an argument for KJ Wright as well. And these are just some outstanding linebackers that the Seahawks have had. But I think I'm giving the edge to Chad Brown. That guy was very good. Now, cornerback. My vote goes to two individuals that were, to me, great shutdown corners. Richard Sherman and Shawn Springs. Now, a lot of these other players in the past, like Dave Brown, Patrick Hunter, Marcus Trufant, and their current players, Devin Witherspoon and Reek Woolen, they're outstanding. But to me, Richard Sherman and Shawn Springs, those guys were outstanding being shutdown corners. For the safeties, this is going to be a tough one here. But my first pick is Kenny Easley. And the reason why is because, well, he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. So he, of course, should be on the list, in my opinion. Now, I'm having a hard time with my other safety because you've got Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. This is another one of those where, I could go either way. And it's just, I don't... What Earl Thomas did for the Seahawks in coverage was just outstanding. But what Cam Chancellor did with his style of football, the way he would lay hits on the receivers or tight ends, I don't want to do a coin flip, but man, I got to pick one. And I'm just going because of his outstanding coverage. I'm going Earl Thomas. And it could be, that could just go either way. I mean, for me, and then you've got other outstanding players. You had Jordan Babineau, who was decent. Now you have Jamal Adams, but if you ask me, he really wasn't that impactful for the short time that he was on the team. But you have other guys like Eugene Robinson, as well as Reggie Tongue. To me, this was my toughest one. These guys are all part of the list, but as far as the starting unit, the safety position, as well as the linebacker, I think was just my toughest choice for a starting lineup. And so, That's basically my starting lineup. You can vote as many times as you want until December 22nd, and so keep that in mind. So, those are the players that I'm selecting for the starting lineup. Now, as I said earlier, I've already submitted my vote. Now I can submit more. But just for the sake of this video, those are the players that I am selecting to be the starting lineup for both sides of the ball. But what about you? Who do you like? Who would you put in your starting lineup? Just let me know who you guys prefer in your starting lineup if you're a Seahawk fan. So, go Hawks!